Today, we're diving into a case that starts with what seems like a totally straightforward request for information, but it spirals into something so much bigger, it ends up challenging the UK's entire judicial process. It's a heck of a story about one person's persistence and a real search for accountability. And we're going to start with this quote from the man at the center of it all, Teamandeep Singh Gill, because wow, it really just says it all. For him, this wasn't just some legal back and forth. It was watching a system he believed in, well, fail right before his eyes. You know, it's funny how the most complicated stories can have the simplest beginnings. This entire saga started with just one person asking one question about one public contract. What happened next, though? Anything but simple. All right, so let's rewind and go right back to the start. It all kicks off with a classic Freedom of Information request, which basically sets an individual citizen on a collision course with a police force. So here are our key players. On one side, you've got Teamandeep Singh Gill, who's representing himself, a litigant in person. And on the other side, Kent Police. Gill puts in a Freedom of Information request, that's a FOIA, asking to see the contract for their speed camera network. According to Gill, Kent Police's answer was pretty simple. No such contract exists. And he just wasn't buying it. In his application, Gill basically laid his cards on the table. He said he believed the police's statement was highly improbable, and that one core belief that he just wasn't being told the truth, that's the spark that ignites this entire multi-year legal fight. So, with both sides completely dug in, the case moves on to where you'd expect it to go, a special tribunal. But instead of finding a resolution, this is where the claimant says the real problems, the systemic problems, truly began. So this new arena is the General Regulatory Chamber, or GRC. Think of it as a special kind of court. It's a first-tier tribunal, and its whole job is to hear appeals about decisions made by regulators. In this case, a fight over a Freedom of Information request. It's supposed to be the place where things like this get sorted out, fairly. So Gill takes his case to the GRC, probably thinking, okay, finally, a fair hearing. But what he says he found was the exact opposite. Instead of getting clarity, he claims he just hit a brick wall, a system that seemed to be putting up more obstacles instead of actually getting to the truth. Now, just look at the list of allegations Gill made against the tribunal itself. It's pretty staggering. He claimed they refused to order the one piece of evidence the entire case was about, the contract. He says they ignored weird timestamps on emails that he believed pointed to tampering. And then, get this, a judge apparently told him the best way to get evidence for his current case was to file a brand new information request. He also accused them of ignoring procedural abuse and of backing every single decision of a judge who later had to be removed from the case. This quote really hones in on one of the most serious claims. So the bundle is basically all the evidence for the case, all put together. Kent Police, the respondent, was also the one in charge of putting this bundle together. Gill alleged they used that power to mess with his evidence to help their own case, something he calls a flat-out, obvious abusive position and process. And here's why all of this matters so much. The GRC has one primary duty. It's their guiding principle, known as the overriding objective, or Rule 2. Its whole purpose, its reason for existing, is to deal with cases fairly and justly. And that principle is about to clash, big time, with the claimant's experience. And here's the rule itself, in black and white. You can see phrases like avoiding unnecessary formality, making sure parties can participate fully, and avoiding delay. This isn't just legalese, it's the official benchmark, the standard the tribunal is supposed to meet. So the case seems to be grinding to a halt, a total dead end. But then, just when you think it's over, something happens in a completely different court that changes everything. Okay, you have got to see this timeline. On November 20th, the GRC hands down its judgment, the rule against Gill. The very next day, literally the next day, in a separate high court case, Kent Police formally admits that it has made false statements in its past FOII responses. The timing is just unreal. So think about what that means. The GRC's whole decision was built on the idea that they could trust what Kent Police was telling them. And then, 24 hours later, Kent Police themselves go on record in another court undermining that very idea. Suddenly, the entire foundation of the GRC's ruling looks like it's built on quicksand. So now Gill has this bombshell new piece of information. So he does the next logical thing, right? He tries to appeal the GRC's decision. But this part of the journey delivered what he felt was the most unbelievable blow of all. So Gill takes his case to the upper tribunal for an appeal. He's got the new admission from Kent Police, he's got his long list of alleged procedural failures, but here's the catch. The first step to appealing a GRC decision is to get permission from the GRC to appeal itself. And the GRC's answer? Nope. And this was their reasoning. This is a direct quote from their refusal. They said that the actual process, the way the case was handled was, and I quote, not relevant to the issues. It's a statement that just seems to contradict the very idea of a fair hearing. So here you have it, side by side. Two completely opposite views of justice. Gill's view is that this is a major error in law, a breach of the GRC's own fair and just rule, and a violation of the right to a fair hearing. The GRC's view? The process doesn't matter, only the result. The gap between those two positions is just massive. And in the end, the higher court, the upper tribunal, took the GRC's side. They didn't just deny the appeal, they stamped it with a label totally without merit. That's a designation that slams the door shut on that particular legal path for good. So after all that, where do things stand? Well, for the claimant, this whole fight had transformed. It wasn't about one little information request anymore. It was now about the integrity of the entire system. I mean, just look at this. These emails are just a tiny, tiny fraction of the massive paper trail from this case. What you're seeing here is the visual proof of years of relentless, detailed, and methodical work by one person trying to hold these huge institutions accountable. And this quote from Gill just nails the shift in his thinking. He says, look, this isn't about some specific legal exemption anymore. It's about the documented conduct of the main players, the police, the regulators, the tribunal, the whole ecosystem that's supposed to protect our right to know. And that brings us to the big final question. This all started with a hunt for a contract, but it ended up putting the whole idea of justice in the spotlight. When the very system designed to give you answers is accused of being the biggest obstacle, you have to ask yourself, what is truly on trial here?